Welcome to another one of Roghnu's Power BI training videos. In this video, we're going to be working with visuals and filters. And as you can see on my screen here, we have a very common diagram of different types of visuals and their use cases. So I encourage you to, pause the video here and take a screenshot of this, or you can just, do a search on the web of, data visualization diagrams like this. There's a lot out there, but a diagram like this is really helpful for guiding you and thinking through the type of visual that you should use depending on the type of question you're asking of your data. Now, obviously, this diagram is not meant to be an all-encompassing guide, but it is a guide nonetheless. As you can see, you have different types of visuals. You have comparison visuals, distributions, composition, relationship, and then those get broken out into different branches. So it's worth studying and reflecting on and thinking through the types, which visuals you might use for your own data. Now, in this video, I'm not going to get into the art and science of data visualization, as interesting as that is. However, if that is something that interests you, I will direct your attention to this book here, Storytelling with Data by Cole Nussbaumer Knaflic. This is one of my favorite books, data visualization books, and it's one that helped me greatly on improving my data visualization proficiency. Now, there are a lot of data visualization books out there, a lot of really good books, but this is, I think, one of the best ones, and I think a good starting book. So if this is something that interests you, I highly recommend you get and read through this book. It'll improve your data visualization skills. And then if you wish, you can look into additional books. Now with that, let's get into Power BI itself. So this is what's called the report view, right? So you have here the data view or the table view where you see, your data in a table format. We saw the model view or relationship view. All right, this is the report view. This is where we actually build out our reports and dashboards. So you can see over here, we have all of our visuals. And then at the top, we also have access to them here. You can click on this to expand it out. And you see that these are also grouped by by the type of visual that they are, bar and column, line and area, and so forth. Now, these are the built-in visuals. Okay, everything. So what you see here, these are not built in, these are imported, and I'm gonna explain that to you here shortly. But these are all built in. From here up, these are built-in visuals accessible in Power BI Desktop. And these will cover the vast majority of your use cases, right? So my word of advice is use default Power BI visuals as much as possible. There are a lot of really cool custom visuals out there, and so you might be tempted to just import a bunch of custom visuals because they're really cool and you can do a lot of things with them. But in the end of the day, you really don't need them. There's a lot you can do with the built-in Power BI visuals, and there's a lot of customizations that you can do with Power BI visuals. And really, every month, Microsoft has Power BI updates, and typically those include updates to built-in visual functionality. So use built-in visuals as much as possible. And you'll also find if you search YouTube, for example, for Power BI visuals, you'll find that there's people out there who are actually really creative in using built-in visuals in ways that you wouldn't think that it was possible. So again, use built-in visuals as much as possible. But if you do come across a scenario where you're really trying to visualize your data in this particular way, and it just doesn't seem possible with the built-in visuals. Well, as I said, there are a lot of custom visuals out there. And how do you access those? Well, again, if I scroll down, get more visuals. All right, that opens up this Power BI custom visuals window. So here you can just scroll through. We see all kinds of custom visuals, and there's tons of them. So we can filter this by visual type, right? We can do comparison. We see different comparison custom visuals. We can do flow. We see different flow custom visuals, and so on and so forth. All right, let's do all. You can also search. So I can search, for example, histogram. You get histogram custom visuals. I can search bullet for bullet chart. Very interesting visual. So you see all the different bullet charts. So, play around with this too and just get ideas of the different kind of visuals out there. I do recommend that if you use a custom visual, that you use those with this certified icon here, this Power BI certified icon check mark, which basically means that this custom visual has passed Microsoft's security guidelines. Okay, so it doesn't mean one that doesn't have it is not good. It doesn't mean it's not secure or it's just safer to go with the certified ones. Maybe the other ones are in the process of getting certified, but again, stick with the certified ones. And keep in mind too that some custom visuals do require payments. Another good reason to use built-in Power BI visuals as much as possible, as some custom visuals require payments, some do not. Some have free versions, but you can't do much with it. In order to really fully use it, you need to do the paid version. So just keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that if you use a custom visual, sometimes those have to be updated. Okay, so we'll go back to the report view. All right, so let's spend some time now just exploring some of the different visuals that we have here in the reports. And this is just to help you get a little familiar with the different types of reports and how to customize them or modify them. So let's just start with this one here. So when you click on a visual, if you go over here to the visuals, you can tell which one it is because it'll have a border around it. So this is the card visual. And as you can see here in the format pane, we have all of our, we have the ability here to modify it. So if I expand the multi-card layout, you see that it's set to tiles, vertical with 2 rows, but you can change this to table view. You can change the arrangement from vertical to horizontal or grid. When you change it to horizontal, you see now it's columns and not rows. So you can customize this to fit your particular needs and the particular layout that you're looking for in your report. And as you can see here, we have additional functionality or features here of padding, gap, border, background, overflow. So overflow is basically if let's say you have, right now this is vertical and we have 2 rows. Well, what if the data had 4 rows, right? So there would be a scroll bar here basically. You could set it up where you click an arrow and it goes down, or you scroll. All right, then you can also change the look of the cards themselves. So you can change the layout, the shape, padding, border, divider, background, accent bar, shadow. For example, if I turn that on, you see you have shadow here. When it comes to things like this, it's helpful to just play around with the visual, have fun with the visual, and just test things out. If I do this, what does it look like? Is this what I want? If not, scratch it and try something else. All right, the call out refers basically to the text that the values that you see here. So you can adjust their layout, padding, the value. For example, you can make bold. You can change the font size and so on and so forth. You can add an image if you want. You have image here you can add, the reference labels, if any, which is just additional numerical values or even text that you can add as a reference or a comparison. And then you can modify those reference labels. So that is the card visual. Okay, so now let's take a look at this line chart here. So if I click on that, what you'll see if we expand the filters, we have a filter being applied to it. So I can expand that. So if I hover over this, this is coming from the PO document entry table, and this is the DocPar ID column. So we can see that two DocPar IDs are selected that are filtering this visual. Now, related to that, I have in place, if we look at the title, you see that I'm using a function or a formula, basically a DAX measure, to populate the title. So this title is being populated from a measure. So if I click on this, we see that it is the PO count, DocPar ID, multiple, dynamic, and whatever else may be in the title. So let me go ahead and find that here. All right, so it's this one right here. If I click on this, we see that it is, oh, not this one, sorry, this one right here. All right, it's the multiple one. So the PO count DocPar ID multiple dynamic title. All right, and so looking at this DAX, being that we've covered some DAX already, this shouldn't look so daunting to you now, which is not to say it'll all make sense to you, but I'm going to walk through and explain pretty much what's going on here. So first we have our variable that I've titled selections, and what values is doing here. So I'm wrapping the DocPar ID column in the DAX function values. And basically what values does is it's returning a list here of all the DocPar IDs. So it returns a unique list. So if you have DocPar IDs with multiple instances, it's only going to return a unique or a distinct, so basically a distinct list of DocPar IDs. So that's what values is doing here. So we're capturing the list of the DocPar IDs, and that is based on whichever DocPar IDs are selected in that filter. So if nothing's selected, the list will be blank. If I select two DocPar IDs, those two DocPar IDs will be captured in this variable here. All right, then we have first selection variable. So I'm using max x here. So again, this is an x function, so it's an iterative function, and I'm passing in there top n. So I'm looking at the top one, and I'm passing in there the selections variable, so the list of selected DocPar IDs. And then I'm looking at DocPar ID. So this is basically the sorting logic of it, or the order expression. So here's the order expression. So this is being ordered by DocPar ID, and then the order type, which is ascending here, and then finally passing in DocPar ID. So this is basically going to capture the again, if multiple DocPar IDs are selected, it's going to capture the first selected one, or the top one selected. And then we have the variable selection count, which is just counting this variable. So however many variables are selected, that's what's going to be captured here. All right, so we've declared our variables. Now we can do the return, and here's the switch function, which you should be familiar with now. So switch true, not is filtered. So if DocPar ID is not filtered, meaning no DocPar IDs are selected, then it's going to return blank. If this is not true, then it's going to run this line here. If the selection count is equal to 1, meaning only one DocPar ID is selected, then return the first selection, and ampersand here is used to concatenate. So concatenate this text, count. All right, and then if that's not the case, meaning more than one has been selected, then return this, concatenate, etc. count onto the first selection. So that's essentially the logic here for this title. And so depending on, so if I click on this visual again here, open up the filters, expand this, you'll see if I start selecting other things, you'll see if I have nothing selected, the title goes away, it's blank. But if I select this, then we have PO receiver inventory count. If I select a multiple, it's going to change to etc., meaning more than one is selected. So that is one of the neat things you can do with titles is make them dynamic to incorporate flexibility with filtering that is applied. Okay, let's now look at this bar chart here. So if I click on that, again, here in this build pane, you see all of the dimensions or the columns that are used to structure this visual. Across the y-axis, you have item. X-axis is a measure, which is total. If I hover over that, it's PO total. So yes, you can change the name. And so if I double click, that allows you to edit the name. So originally when I put this in here, it's PO total, but I can just double click that and change that to total. And then here you have a tooltip section where you can add additional measures. So if I hover over a bar, we see those additional measures. All right, now, while we're not doing that here in this visual, you can add a small multiples. So if there's another category that you want to essentially split out this bar chart into, to where you have multiple bar charts in a visual, you can do that. Let me click back here. I want to show you something here. So in the format pane, again, this is where you can change the color, you can change, the labels, you can add labels. Here we have labels here. We can, if I expand that, you can change in values, you can change the color, you can make them bold if you want, you can change the size of them and so forth. So you have all kinds of functionality here to change the aesthetics of the visual. The thing I want to show you here in this visual is, we can add a reference line. So if I click add line, and then I choose the type of line I want, we have a handful of options here. For this one, I'm going to choose average line, and we see that creates this average line here, right? So now we can easily see where the average of purchase order total across these items is. And I can even add, so if I scroll down here, I can add data label. See that gets added there. You can change the position of it, left or right. You can change the color of it, make it stand out more. You can make it be on the top or the bottom. So we'll just leave that there. And we can also shade it. Well, actually, if I, let's see, go up here. So here by default, it's in front of the bars. I can make it go behind the bars. And I can also, instead of a dash, I can make it solid. All right, I can change the colors, make that black. Transparency, how transparent do I want it? I can adjust that. Let's just make it 25. All right, so now it's a little darker. The width, I think, is a little thick. Let's make that 1. I think that looks good. Now, we could also add a shaded area. If I turn that on, this gets shaded. But again, I can change it. It doesn't have to be on the left side. It can be on the right side there. All right, and I can change the color, let's say a light gray. Maybe that's a little too light. Let's make it a little darker. All right, so there we can easily see which items are above average, and in this shaded area just makes that stand out all the more. So this is, just one example of the modifications or that you can make to a visual to make it stand out, to emphasize the data that you want to emphasize. All right, let's learn some more about data visualizations by looking at existing visuals. So on this page, we have these line charts at the top here. And I want to go through one of these. As to go through one is essentially to go through all of these and show you how you can create a visual like this. Like this isn't a simple basic line chart, right? One of those lines is shaded. We also have quarter markers. So I want to show how you can create something like this. So to start out with, if I click on the visual over here, we see starting out what's being fed into the visual. So we have our month x-axis. So if I hover over this, for example, we see the 4, which is April. So January, February, March, April, so on and so forth. And then in the tooltips area, I have month over here. Now this is text, so this is the month name. So again, if I hover over here, you see there month MAR for March, month April, month May. So that just makes it more explicit what month we're in rather than just relying on the number there. And then of course we have our measures, previous year and current year, which give us these lines. Now notice that the green line here is in front of the gray line, and the green line is the current year. So the measure that is at the bottom here is going to be on top. All right, and now maybe that sounds counterintuitive. You maybe think the measure here at the top should be on top. But if you think about it, if I were to click add data and then add a new measure here, that's going to get placed right below current year. And that one's going to be at the top layer. So you can think of it as the measure that gets added last is the one that's going to be at the top. Okay, now how do we do this shading that we see in the visual? Well, again, if I click on this formatting icon with the data bars and the paintbrush, that's going to open up the format pane. And the main thing we need to look at here is shade area, which is turned on. Now then you can go in here and you can select certain ones. So by default, it's going to have all here, but you can click on, say, current year and turn that off. So we don't have shading for current year. And then if we click on previous year, that's turned on. So we do have shading for previous year. And then of course you can choose the color of the line and whether or not the shaded area will match the color of the line. So that's how you create the shaded, and you can specify, excuse me, you can specify which line gets the shading. All right, and then we can close that. And okay, these quarter markers, how do we get these? Because these are really helpful in making and interpreting the visual. You can instantly see which segments of the lines fall into which quarter. That's very helpful. Well, if you go down here to reference line, and you see we have 4 lines that are created. All right, we have Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So let me click on Q1 here. And to rename, when you create a line, you can rename it by just double clicking into it, and then you can name it there. And you choose the line type. In this case, we have x-axis constant line. And then you can choose, the color of the line, transparency and whatnot. If you want to shade it, the data label here that's turned on, which is this Q1 here. Now you can't see the Q1 line, which is fine. It makes sense. We don't really need a Q1 line. We know it starts here at the very beginning. But we have the data label to the right of the line. It's at the top. And then we're displaying the name only. So you could change that to data value. Now you see there's 1 there. You could change that to both, but that's a bit repetitive. Q1, 1 doesn't, we don't really need that. So we just have the name Q1. Then again, you can choose the color of that. So I go back up and choose Q2. We see again, the value here is 4, right? That's the placement. It's going to be on the x-axis, 4. We choose the color, transparency, the type of line, whether it's behind or in front of the lines on the chart. We choose the data label, and we just want the name. And this is essentially the same thing for Q3 and Q4. The only difference is the value. So we hover, so Q3 is of course going to start in July, so 7th, and then Q4 is going to start in October 10. So those are just, if we click on these, we see the value 7 and 10. So here we have a combo chart, which is basically a combination of columns and lines. Now, this may not look quite like a combo chart because we don't have any lines, but it's still a combo chart. So this is a good example of how you can tweak visuals or work with the formatting of visuals to present your data in creative ways. And I want to show you how to do this, and it's actually rather straightforward. But for this visual, it didn't make sense to keep the lines because lines are best used for showing trends over time. And this visual is not a time series visual. But the dots or the markers or data points here did make sense to keep. So all you have to do when you create this visual, when you add your data for your columns and then your lines, so here, these are the counts. Let's go and turn the lines on. If we go into lines here, we can turn those on. So this is what it would look like. Actually, if we go to markers and turn those off, this is initially what it would look like once we added the data. Is you'd have your combo chart, right? You have your columns, you have your lines. But again, we don't want lines, but we don't want to remove the lines because then we can't see the data points for the counts. So first you turn on the markers. All right, you can change the colors if you want. You can change the shape if you want. We can make these squares. You can change the size. We make these a little bigger. All right, and then all we have to do is go to lines, and again, with all series selected, turn those off. All right, and so we have our data points for the counts while removing the lines. Okay, so here we have this creative design on this page. We have these circles with this green shadow, and on the inside of the circle we have the KPIs, and then to the right of the circle we have this light gray rectangle that we're putting the line chart in. So how do you create something like this? Well, there's basically 2 approaches you can take. The first one is not ideal, but it's still good to know about it, as you might want to make some use of it. So first, let me create a new tab here. All right, now if I go to Insert, and then we have a Shapes drop down here, we have various shapes that we can work with. So I'll use this oval shape. All right, and we don't want the title, so let me go ahead and open up the formatting, turn the title off. And then I can adjust the size of this way, but we might accidentally, make it more of an oval instead of a perfect circle. So we can actually go to size and style and hard code the height and the width. So we'll just make this 200 by 200, right? Now we're in size and style here. If I turn the shadow on, notice that the shadow applies to the box basically, right? If I click on this whole outside. We don't want that. We want the shadow to apply to the circle only. The same would apply to the background and the visual border. It's all going to apply to this outside here, which is not what we want. So we turn that off, that off. I'll close this. What we do want is the shape style. All right. Now you can change the shape here if you want. We have the fill. We want a white fill. So we'll change that. All right. And the border, we don't need the border. We'll turn that off. All right. So we can't see anything right now, but it's still there. And then we can turn the shadow on. All right. Now we're seeing our circle again. But notice that it's by default at the bottom right. So we'll expand this and change this to center. All right, now this is starting to look like what we saw on that other page. We can keep it this color if we want, or we can change it to, we'll just do this green again. You can adjust the transparency if you want. You can increase or decrease the blur. If we increase the blur, notice that it's gonna get wider. All right, you're gonna see more of that shadow, which is what we want in this case. So we'll leave it at that. All right, so there we have our circle, right? All right, now we need that rectangle. So again, we can go up to shadows. We'll click on the rectangle. Again, we're going to turn the title off. All right, and let's move this over here. All right, let's expand this, make sure that visual border is off. There we go. We'll close this. All right, for this, the fill, we want to make that white. And the border, we want a light gray. We'll do this, see how that looks. That looks good. Again, we can adjust this as needed. And expand this out. All right, this is looking kind of like what we want, only the circle is behind the rectangle, not what we want. We want the rectangle behind the circle. Well, all we have to do is click on the rectangle, go to Format, and then we can just click on this here, send backward, or we can expand or drop this down and do send backward or send to back, either or. And it's going to send it all the way to the back. So you can imagine if there's multiple layers of things, clicking send backward will send it backward, but not necessarily to the very back. So you might still have some other visuals that it's in front of. But in this case, we're just dealing with two visuals. All right, so here basically we have our design here that we saw on the other page. Now, what if we want to move this? Like we want it over to the left more. Do we have to move this first, the circle first, and then move the rectangle and realign it? No, you don't have to. You can highlight both of them, right click, go to group, and now this is group. So we can move this together like so, right? And then we can just replicate this, just copy and paste. So click on this, copy, Control V, all right, and we'll just move this out, and we can just keep doing that until we until we get the number that we want, and then we can start adding our visuals. Okay, that's nice, right? But there's some things to keep in mind here. The first one is the more visuals you add to this page, the more you're going to increase the file size, and it just makes the report bulkier. It can get in the way of development. If you're trying, you're clicking around during development, you accidentally click on this and you don't want to click on this. When you publish this, and let's just pretend you have like a line chart here. Well, what if someone accidentally like clicks on the corner here? Well, now this comes to the front, and now the line chart is behind the shape, and you can't see it, unless of course you have this as transparent instead of filled with the color, which you could do. But still, now you can't hover over the line chart, right? So it makes things clunky. And furthermore, if we go over here to the selection pane, we'll click on that, expand the selection pane. You see our two groups are here. Well, let's highlight these and we'll ungroup these. All right, ungroup them one at a time. All right, so now we see all 4 shapes here. Imagine if we created more of these, we're gonna have a lot of shapes. Then we have to add our visuals. Those are gonna added here. It just adds a lot to a single page. On as a side note, this is also a way you can adjust the order of things. So right now, again, if I click on this, we see this is highlighted. If I click on this, that's highlighted. So we see where they are, right? Um, so the lower down, the more in the background they are. So if I take this rectangle here and I move that up here, well, now it's in front of the circle. All right, so I can take this and move it back down here, and now it's behind the circle. So that's another way you can adjust the level of things. Okay, that's one way that you can create a layout like that. The other way, which is more ideal, is by making use of PowerPoint. So let me show you here. Here I have created a lot of different backgrounds, including, as you can see here, the one that we saw on that one page. But we have a lot of backgrounds here. So you could just create shapes, use the shapes in PowerPoint. We have shadow involved here, and create the layout you want and just have fun with it. Use your imagination. And then basically you create a screenshot of it, right? Just take a screenshot from here to here with your snipping tool, save that, and then you can import that as a background. So let me show you how to do that. Again, if I click off of a visual, we'll close the selection pane. I see here canvas background. All right, so let me expand that, and then I can click browse, right? And then we just go to downloads. I have some downloaded here. You can navigate to wherever your backgrounds are saved. All right, I'm gonna double click this one, and we don't see anything yet because by default the transparency is 100%. Let's make that 0. And let's go ahead and we'll delete these shapes that we made so we can see everything clearly. All right, now this isn't really aligned very well. That's because the fit we need to adjust. So it's at fit. Let's change that to fill. And there we go. Now this should be disappearing here. Let me navigate off this page and navigate back. For some reason, this page is here. This visual is here. Maybe we need to add a visual. So if we add a visual, that goes away. Okay. So, but you see the background here. So if I click on here, if I click here, like I'm not selecting anything because it's the background, right? I can't accidentally click on it and then it gets brought forward and now I can't see the visuals or hover over the visuals. So this is a great way to add design to your page layouts. And again, I can go back here. Let me exit that, browse, and we'll do the other one. All right, here's another layout. Fit, we'll change this to fill. So again, and then we can have we can have KPIs up here. You can have maybe a bar chart here and then a line chart here. So come up with your layout ideas and then use PowerPoint in the shapes in PowerPoint to create those backgrounds. Screenshot them and then import them into your reports. The ability to drill through into more granular data is very important when it comes to data analytics. And thankfully, that's something that you can easily set up in Power BI. So that's what I want to demonstrate to you now. So for example, on this AP dashboard here, we can right click on a vendor and go to drill through and then AP vendor bills. I'll click on that and it navigates us here where we have these bills for that vendor. How do we do this? How do you set that up? Well, basically, first you create your tab, right? Create a new tab. As you can see here, we have a background that was created in PowerPoint that was imported in. So you can set that up. You can add your table and then add all of your relevant data that you want to be able to drill through on. So here we have a table with data. We have another table down here. And then, so I'll click off of the visual, want to expand the format. And in this page information section, all right, we want to make sure that page type is set to drill through. And then in the drill through from section here, we're going to put the columns or measures. You can also drill through on measures that you want to drill through on. In this case, we have the vendor name in here. So that allows us to drill through to this page on vendor name. Now in these tables, I have additional filtering in place. If I click on this table and expand the filter, I have this table only showing overdue bills. If I click on this one, this is only showing open bills, right? But the main thing here that we're looking at is the page is set to drill through, and then I'm putting in here, it can be multiple categories, the things that I want to be able to drill through to this page from. All right, so that's what enables us. If we go back to AP dashboard here, that's what enables us to right click on a vendor and see this drill through capability with AP vendor bills showing up. Why? Because this is this right here is vendor name, and we set up on that page to drill through on vendor name. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want to show you pertaining to themes and design. So right now, this PBIX file is using a theme, which basically refers to the color palette and the visual design, the kind of borders, the font, and so forth. So if I click on this visual, for example, and go to columns here and expand the colors here, here we have the color palette for this theme. But then also, pertains to, whether or not the corners of the borders of the visuals are curved. Like these are built-in things in the theme. These are things that are part of the theme, which speeds up report development. So if I had to implement this formatting for visuals every single time I created a visual, it would take a lot longer to develop. By having a theme, I have consistency and I have the immediate visual format that I want. This is also helpful if you have multiple Power BI developers on your team and you want to ensure that everyone is developing reports consistently. The look and feel of their reporting is consistent. Making sure that everyone uses the same theme is very important. So you can create your own theme, which is essentially a JSON file, and you can import that in. Or if you navigate up here, if you go to the View tab and then the expand arrow here, we have built-in themes that you can use here. But there's something else I want to show you. Let me bring this over here. So here, if you go to themes.powerbi.tips, this is essentially a theme builder. So this makes it easy if you're not sure how to work in JSON. Even if you are, this just makes it a lot easier, a lot quicker. You can build your own theme this way. Now, the main thing on this page is the properties section, but you can explore these other sections here. And this is where you basically put in place the formatting that you want for every aspect of a visual and report page. Everything is here, right? You just scroll through here and look at the various sections. Now you don't need to apply formatting to every single thing if you don't want to. You can focus on the main things like accent bar. If I expand that, you can do your formatting there. If we do background, you can do your formatting there, your color and so forth. So bars, what's the default formatting you want, and for your bars, you can set that in place here. And the nice thing about this is you can see what the visuals are going to look like as you're adding these adding this formatting in place. You see it here. You can select a particular visual that you want to view and do formatting for. So this is very, very helpful for designing your own theme. But again, if you want, you can just utilize the built-in themes in Power BI. Okay, there's one more thing I want to show you here. This again pertains to themes, but also more generally design ideas for your reporting and dashboarding. And again, we go up here to the themes and we go to theme gallery. So this opens in your browser. Let me drag that over here. All right. So here, this is in the Fabric community, and these are PBIX files that Power BI developers in the community have uploaded for others to use, to get inspiration from, to utilize the themes. So you can scroll through here and look at the themes. If you see any themes you like, you can incorporate those in your own reporting. But it's also useful for getting reporting ideas, design ideas. So this one looks really neat. Let me click into here, and you actually get a live view of it too, which is really nice. So you can actually play around with it. You can hover, you can click on things and see visuals adjust. So you can look at the design layout, look at the icons and everything, and get ideas for how you want to design your report pages. So I can just click through here and just see how they do it and say, yes, I like this. I want to do that. I don't want to do that. And just play around with things and navigate back. And the nice thing is there's so many different themes in here, so many different options that you can explore and choose from. So just scroll through here and start looking at ideas to help you develop your own sense, your own aesthetic sense of design.
For more information on working with Roghnu and exploring how the data portal can help you get the most out of Sage Intacct alongside your other critical business data, scan the code on the screen or click in the link in the description.